Mike Lynn, Memorial League, Week 3, Power Rankings. Brought to you by... Actually, I don't have a sponsor this week. So I'm going to do the Power Rankings a little bit different this week because I'm tied up the rest of the week with work and kids' activities, and I didn't have time to do a deck. Not that the deck is ever good or all that time consuming, but I'm just going to run through the results. I'm going to look at the league's power rankings. I'm going to give my commentary, and we will go from there. Okay, so starting with the scoreboard from last week, former MVP Power gets past Weapons of Matt's Distraction, who's tumbling in the standings and the power rankings, 68-49. Let's take a look at that game cast quickly. And we have slow internet. So obviously this was a tight game going into Monday night, but the performance from one Patrick Mahomes was enough. I mean, look at these starters, though, from Jeremy. Lucky to score 68 points when Kenyon Drake, T.Y. Hilton, John Brown, Robbie Anderson, and Greg Olsen combined for 11 points, and you still scored 68. Matt, on the other hand, you get Galladay back in the lineup, that Galladay Thielen thing going on, but you have one of the most underwhelming performers in fantasy so far this year in Joe Mixon, who just can't get going behind that crummy Cincinnati offensive line. And then Tannehill as your starter when both Burrow and Breeze put up north of 15 points. And then I don't know, obviously having two starting running backs makes it tough to make good lineup decisions all the time, but I wouldn't be able to justify starting Joe Mixon over Robert Woods at this point. On the positive front, Judy and Ayuk certainly look like rookies who could make an impact the rest of the year, although Judy's going to be hampered by the quarterback injury. Okay, let's move on. Spending too much time on one game. Stern Rake can't defeat yesterday's Corn, who surged with 66 points. Let's take a look at that game cast in a second here, but it's nice to see we have no more winless teams coming out of this week. Love to see that. So let's see, what happened in that contest. So, again, big quarterback performance, one good starter in Cooper Kupp, but having to start Adrian Peterson in the year 2020, not a recipe for success most of the time. Gesicki, you can't win there. You had him out of the lineup last week and lost. In the lineup this week, he has one catch. Granted, it's a touchdown. But I don't know about playing James Washington. I understand 5 catches, but, man, I don't know if I'd be counting on him every week. I know not a lot of other options, but both Beasley and Watkins, to me, are superior options to James Washington. And then, obviously, no one is going to start Justin Jefferson going into last week, but got to feel good to have that kind of performance, even if it ended up being on the bench. Looks like you started the wrong kicker and the wrong defense, but can't fault you for the decisions that you made on your lineup at all. Walden, the Carson injury is going to be tough going forward. Corey Davis has been a nice surprise from a performance standpoint so far. Allen Robinson getting going. I think having Foles in the lineup helped there. Keenan Allen is quickly reestablishing himself as a wide receiver 1, but pretty scary to look across the bench at, obviously out for the year, hurt. That's a tough spot to be in. So with bye weeks approaching, it could be a little bit ugly. Okay, I have to stop saying obviously all the time. It is annoying. Everybody's got their little ticks, pet words, filler words. That one has not been one of mine until I started making these videos. All right, homies, that double tight end lineup, 12 personnel, not good enough to get past Tuckfest, who finally gets in the win column and puts up the third highest points for the week. All right, so Derrick Henry, great. Jonathan Taylor, not a lot of yardage, but found the end zone. But this is where this is just abysmal. AJ Green is no longer a startable wide receiver, and he's your wide receiver 1. Yuck. Ertz, yeah, great, but Goddard now has a broken ankle. All right, so how do you replace him in the lineup? Maybe you're starting Kyle Rudolph. Maybe you're starting T. Higgins. If I were you, I would be looking at the trade market. And I can't understand the decision to not start Deshaun Watson. On the positive side, Darrell Henderson looks like he's taken over as the top dog in the Rams backfield, and he has a lot of juice. So maybe finding a way to leverage some of your running back depth to find an actual startable wide receiver is something that you should take a look at. Tuckfest gets in the win column. Dak was huge. Edwards-Helaire continues to be impressive, but hasn't found the end zone. Lacking touchdowns from a couple receivers. Mark Andrews had a disappointing night, dropping that touchdown, but I was thankful because it helped me win in another league. And then powered to victory by the Colts defense. 2 sacks, 2 touchdowns. You don't get to play the Jets every week, but if your defense plays the Jets, you got to start them. The bench looks frightening. And how about these rookie running backs having no juice so far? DeAndre Swift, if we had drops in this league, probably gets dropped. Zach Moss didn't even touch the ball. This is a little scary to me, although it was nice to see Gronk get going, and I still have Fant in the lineup if I'm you. All right. Let's go to Senior Ass. Losing by basically a touchdown to Tommy's Terminators. This was another close one coming into Monday night. And I'm sure there was some fear for Tom as Marquise Brown didn't really do anything. And it took a minute for Lamar Jackson to score any points. But in the end, 61 points is enough to win. For Rob, you know, it is 55 points is a respectable number, but looking at Montgomery probably as the weakest link in the lineup, when you have 2 receivers who put up pretty decent days in Sanders and Boyd, maybe finding a way to get those guys in the lineup. Otherwise, it just looks like some bad luck. Interesting that Mike Evans the last 3 weeks has 3 catches and 3 yards and 3 touchdowns. That's weird that Brady can't seem to find him in the field of play. But I'm sure that will correct itself eventually. I think normally Rob puts up more points because Jones breaks the 100-yard mark or does a little bit better, but just not a lot of juice there this week, and it wasn't enough to overcome excellent days from both James Conner and Austin Eckler. Tom, glad to see that James Conner is back on track after I trashed him after week 1. A little scary at the lack of production from Marquise Brown and just overall that Ravens offense when they were behind, having no juice in the pass game. Have to comment that we did make a trade. You improved the backup quarterback situation on your team by landing Stafford. I improved my defense by landing the Bucks. Hopefully it works out for everyone involved. Seeing Allen Lazard establish himself in Devontae Adams' absence was interesting. I know you had him in the lineup a couple weeks ago, not in the lineup now, but it will probably be a toss-up going forward between him and Brown, depending on matchups. And then Hayden Hurst hasn't necessarily had the juice that you'd like to see out of him, but getting in the end zone, I guess, makes up for lack of targets and catches. Juchi's Giant Jocks is snake bitten again. I think you have the most points against. Mobile Thrill getting it past the century mark. 3 salamis in a row. This team is a juggernaut. Can anybody stop them? Let's find out. I think Sean has a good team, but just bad luck there. And Dave, powered by Josh Allen's 5 total touchdowns, Alvin Kamara, 139 yards on checkdowns, had a play where he caught the ball behind the line of scrimmage and then just ran 50 yards and made like 5 people miss. Chubb, the one thing I would be concerned about Chubb, soft schedule so far, I think he's got like 3 targets in the pass game. Not super impressive there. And then, some juice on the bench and Gallup. And once Chark comes back, you've got some other options beyond Slayton, because I wouldn't want to be starting anybody associated with the New York Football Giants right now. Otherwise, not a lot to be concerned with about your team, and just putting up ridiculous numbers. And I'm past doubting Josh Allen. Like, oh, better fantasy than reality, quarterback, whatever. No, he's just a pretty good player. All right, so Sean, 78 points in a loss, always hurts. Huge day from Tyler Lockett. Diggs, still a wide receiver 1, and I think we all discounted him far too much, assuming that Josh Allen wasn't going to be good. Josh Allen's probably better than Cousins for Diggs, right? And then, everybody else performed on the team. You just got kind of a bad luck day at quarterback with Newton, and even if you had started someone else, which I would not have, you weren't going to win just because you're facing a 100-point scorer. Hopefully Michael Thomas is back for you soon. Interesting decision to have Josh Jacobs on the bench. I didn't honestly notice that until now. I don't know if there'd ever be a day that I'm starting Mark Ingram over Josh Jacobs, and you probably won't going forward. Mark Ingram probably isn't a startable player for the rest of the year. And then for Sony Michel to score 100 or get 117 yards on 9 touches is impressive, but can you count on him week in and week out? Probably not. To optimize your lineup week in and week out, you're probably starting Jacobs and then finding a way to get another receiver into the lineup if Thomas is healthy, or Hunter Henry into the lineup and going with 2 tight ends, because Michelle probably isn't a reliable player. And the final game of the week was myself versus Chad. I won comfortably, powered by the MVP, Russ Wilson. Also had reliable performances from Dalvin Cook and Tyreek Hill, and DK Metcalf scored a lot despite the stupidity of not finishing a play that would have been a sure touchdown. This game was not particularly close throughout the day. Chad's team still fairly loaded. Just did not get the touchdowns from Calvin Ridley this week. A little bit of bad luck there. No touchdown from Tyler Higbee for the first time in a couple weeks. Terrible matchup for Melvin Gordon and the Broncos. So outside of Kyler Murray, there wasn't a whole lot of juice. Perhaps could have made it a little closer if you'd started the Titans kicker, I guess, but I don't think anyone was going to do that over the Saints kicker. And then interesting that Mecole Hardman got loose and also dropped another potential touchdown. It would have been an even bigger day. So still think his team's pretty good. Maybe concern a backup quarterback. And then Kyler is putting up fantasy points, but the turnovers, and if you do some advanced analytics on his actual quarterback play and not just the fantasy results, he's not as far along as you might hope. And so as they continue to play tough defenses, they've got to play the 49ers again. They got the Seahawks a couple times. Not that Seahawks defense has all that much juice, but good coaches there. I could see Kyler hitting a tough stretch just because, you look at his yards per attempt, his expected yards per pass, and some of the metrics that the advanced analytics guys will get into, and he's not maybe as far along as the fantasy results would indicate. But hope it does. Hope the success does sustain, and that's your first loss. So sitting at 2-1, still in a pretty healthy position. So let's go look at the standings. We'll look at the power rankings, and then I'll randomly make some predictions. Interesting. Also, our average score is down to 64 this week after being in the 70s last week. All right, so Dave and I are the only undefeated teams, but now that everybody is in the win column, nobody's out of it, and then we have two divisions where everybody is 1-2. So it's obviously wide open. I've gotten a little bit of luck on the points against side. Not that I think many of my, like I didn't have any low scoring weeks. Dave scoring almost 300 points and like 50 points more than anybody else is eye-opening. And if we look at points scored, Tom, that's a tough number. Todd, that's a tough number. This one, though, 148 points. And then who's gotten unlucky so far? Well, same thing here. Albin's got 227 against, Tom 220 against, Todd 222 against, and then Sean 216 against. So perhaps who's snake bitten out of that group? Probably Sean to be 1-2. Probably is a 2-1 or better team, but just a little bit of luck. All right, this week we're gonna rely on the RTS power rankings. What do they think? You've got my commentary on your teams. This lines up with what I just said. I haven't even looked at these yet. So hard to argue against Dave having the best team. I think my team's pretty good. I look forward to a week 9 matchup, although I have had some historic collapses in this league. I think I was 5-1 or 6-1 last year. I didn't make the playoffs, something stupid like that. I expect Sean to get in the win column here. Chad's team's pretty good. This one, Matt at 1-2. I guess you just got to optimize your lineup because Mixon has been holding you back. And then, everything else is, probably makes sense. Jeremy's gotten a little bit lucky, but anytime you got Mahomes in your lineup, you got a chance to win every week if your quarterback's going to score 30. It's another reason I think this league is underrated quarterbacks. Like, I've gotten some stick for keeping quarterbacks or protecting quarterbacks. And it's like if you have a top 3 or 4 guy that's going to put up 20 to 30 points every week, it makes a huge difference. And there's a big difference in that between your next tier of quarterback, the Matt Staffords and Matt Ryans and Carson Wentz's of the world that are going to get you 12 to 15 points. That's the difference in a lot of these games. So maybe, if you have an elite quarterback, go and maybe the rest of the league will value them a little bit more going forward. All right, that's about all I got for today. Actually went a lot longer than I thought I would, and perhaps I could have used this time to make the real power rankings. If we look at the matchups this week, good luck to y'all, except Justin. I hope your team stinks this week. Everybody else, I hope you do well. Some interesting matchups between 1 and 2 teams that will separate perhaps contenders from pretenders. I think we'll start to see this shape up who's got a chance at the playoffs. All right, that's all I got. Good luck, and we'll talk to you next week.